Hello friends, this is Worm, right back at you, and today I wanted to talk about the mid-season balance pass that Bungie is doing, I would assume next week, right? I don't think they've listed it in the actual update here, but it is of course the mid-season update, which I would assume is coming next week, maybe the week after next, something like that. And I just want to kind of go over some thoughts and opinions that I had on this. So I'm going to pull it up on screen. I'm going to periodically be taking it on and off the screen, that way y'all can watch background gameplay. Hello friends, this is Fairy Godworm here, reminding you to hit that sub button, because we do this all the time. Okay, enjoy the content now. But first up here, we have nerfs to two major exotic armor power players in the Crucible right now. And that is Antaeus Wards and young Ahamkara's Spine. God, try saying that 10 times fast, right? So basically, they are changing Antaeus Wards to work with your class ability. And this is, in my opinion, I mean, the change that they made here is perfect, right? So Reflective Vince will now require full class ability energy to deploy, right? Following deactivation of Reflective Vince, your class ability energy is drained proportional to the amount of damage reflected, right? So what it sounds like it's doing here is when you do a slide, right? When you go in for a slide, your shield's gonna pop up and it's going to take away the amount of shield energy, it's going to take away an amount of shield energy that is dependent on how much damage you take. So what I'm thinking here is, if you're using Antaeus Wards and you're running around and you're just sliding and you're popping up that shield, I don't know if that's going to actually consume any energy if you're not taking any damage. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like it's not going to, right? So if you're just sliding around, you're sliding to get to cover, you're just sliding to move faster, stuff like that, it's not going to have any effect, right? You're not going to lose your class ability or anything like that. It is simply going to exist for a second and then go away. The big thing is when you slide and you take damage, it's now going to deplete shield energy. Now, one thing I'm very curious about is how much damage is it going to take for it to deactivate the entire shield? Is it going to be 50 damage? Is it going to be 100 damage? Like, is it going to be, the amount of damage that would normally kill a Guardian, like about 200 damage? Like, the strength of that shield is very dependent, right? Because here's the thing, like, if you're getting gunned down by a submachine gun and you slide in, and you get a kill and you took, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 SMG shots, something like that. Like, is that going to consume your whole class ability? I don't know, right? And I think that Bungie's probably going to lean more into the more energy taken as opposed to less energy taken, right? I think that the amount of damage that shield's going to be able to take before it's completely depleted is probably pretty low. I think, like, maybe at most they'd probably do 75, maybe 100 damage, right? If they're feeling bold. But overall, I think this is a good change. We talked about Antaeus Wards and the power vacuum that was created when Bungie nerfed everything else. And unfortunately, they're just doing this to Antaeus Wards. They're nerfing it, so we'll see what Titan Exotic steps up to the plate next. But it also no longer gives you an improved slide, right? Also, young Ahamkara's Spine, and this is another big one that I have had some issues with as well. But of course, throw a Trip Mine. Any damage that any of your abilities do will give you Trip Mine energy. It gives you 50% Trip Mine energy, right? So they're changing it so that they reduced the Trip Mine grenades bonus health from 100 to 70, so it'll now be easier to destroy, and removed the bonus 50% damage resistance. So I'm guessing so on top of having 100 health, it also got 50% damage resistance. So that's pretty nice. They'll be much easier to destroy. And then here we go. Grenade energy is now provided on ability kills instead of damage. And this is huge. And I think when we talked about, exotics that needed some tuning a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, this was one of them. And I think this was actually the very thing we said should happen. Instead of giving you ability energy on damage, it should give you that grenade energy on kill, right? So if you clean somebody up with a Trip Mine, bam, 50% energy right back, and then you turn around and kill somebody with a throwing knife, bam, you got your Trip Mine back, right? Like, I feel like this is a much more appropriate change. The implications in PvE, this is a big nerf in PvE, right? Like, I don't want to pretend that it's not, because in PvE there were some really fun builds that you could do with the fan knife melee ability and stuff like that, to have basically infinite infinite trip mines. But yeah, I mean, I think that this change for PvP is much, much needed. Unfortunately, the side effect of having this change is in PvE. It did get a big nerf. So, you know, I think that you're going to see it even less than you do currently in PvE. But again, this is a major change. But yeah, let's talk about the weapon balancing too here. So SMGs, the main takeaway from this is they have globally increased all recoil for SMGs by 10%, right? This is a big deal here. Let me hide that. This is a big deal, right? Because especially someone like me, right? I use SMGs frequently. Okay. I have what I would consider to be the god roll on an out of bounds as an absolute laser beam. It's a melt machine, right? It's got, what is it? Ricochet rounds, hammer forge rifling, range masterwork, dynamic sway, tap the trigger. Like, it's got it all. It is absolutely stacked, and it is a melt machine. And they're increasing the recoil globally by 10%. So I don't know if this is, you know, going to be the recoil direction, the recoil magnitude, both of them. You know, currently, you know, recoil patterns, they go up, but they also have a left and right, right? They have a left and right recoil pattern. And so I don't know if this is increasing that left to right recoil pattern. Like, I'm not really sure exactly how they're, you know, reducing this, but they are also further reducing the mouse and keyboard stability bonus from 20% to now 10%. So on mouse and keyboard, submachine guns are going to be much more difficult to use. So if you're like me and you play on PC, but you use a controller, this will make combating other MNK users that are using SMGs a lot easier. Overall, I think this is I think it's a fine change. I think that the big takeaway from this is if you are very proficient and you have a god roll SMG, it's not going to feel too much of a nerf unless you're on mouse and keyboard. You're definitely going to feel a difference on mouse and keyboard. You're going to feel a difference no matter what you play. But I think on mouse and keyboard, it's definitely going to be a lot more noticeable. And I think it also means that perks like dynamic sway reduction and tap the trigger are going to become substantially more important for SMGs, right? Like, that's, I don't know. Yeah, I think that if you have any SMGs with tap the trigger and dynamic sway reduction, you better get those out and get ready, because after this nerf, those are going to go up in value by lots. So auto rifles here, we have some changes. Auto rifles, rapid fire autos, they've reduced the ADS fall off scalar from 1.7 to 1.6, which, what does that mean? Basically the range is going to be more, right? I think so. I think that they're getting just a little bit, tiny bit more range. And they basically done that with every single archetype. So adapt frames, the 600s, same thing. They've also increased, they've changed some of the damage on 600s, right? Now, 600s at one point in the Crucible were absolutely dominating, right? They really were. You know, things like Monte Carlo was insane. Gnawing Hunger, insane. They've since been tuned back. So, you know, I think this buff is it's kind of important. You know, because I would say that the time to kill for 600 round per minute auto rifles is not bad by any means, but it is very unforgiving. And I think these changes here, where they increase the base damage from 14.25 to 15, as well as they decreased the critical hit multiplier from 1.6 to 1.55, I think that this is going to help these just be a little bit more forgiving. I don't see a significant change in the time to kill, but I do think that this will help them be more forgiving. Also, they did note here, critical damage is going to go from 22.8 to 23.3 because of the base damage change. Right. Oh, here's, sorry, let me pull that back up there. This is what we're talking about right here. But precision auto rifles, they reduced the ADS fall off scalar from 1.7 to 1.6. Again, same thing they've done on the other ones. The Ommet, however, is getting a very specific change. They have reduced the zoom from 17 to 15 because Ommet is currently sitting on top. Now, fun fact here, they go into details and say the Undisputed King, for multiple reasons, it has high range, its ability to craft with enhanced perks, the Milan origin trait, and the above all, average zoom. They made no mention of gut shot straight in here, which kind of does surprise me, but yeah. Pulse rifles, they basically said that they're pretty satisfied with where pulse rifles are. Here, I'll read it to you. Well, we're generally satisfied with the place that high impact pulse rifles have found themselves after the recent changes. It has come at the cost of almost all other pulse rifle subfamilies swinging heavily negative in terms of effectiveness, which is true. As such, we'll be making two changes to pulse rifles in the mid-season patch. Our explicit goal is to keep high impact pulse rifles near where they are now, while elevating the other subfamilies to move back into contention. We'll be increasing the damage fall off start at 0 range by 1 meter, right? Which means that pulse rifle with low range stats, rapid fire, lightweight, stuff like that, will see a noticeable benefit to their damage fall off, right? Pulse rifles with higher stats, messenger, what's another one? No time to explain, stuff like that, will see very little or no improvement. I think that's pretty decent, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that's necessary because they're kind of right. Like, I don't know if you pay attention in your Crucible games. I don't see a whole lot of pulse rifles outside of aggressives, right? And aggressives, even though they got nerfed and they're not as good as they were, they do still feel oppressive. Like, they are still very, very strong, and they're still very good weapons. I think that this is going to allow breathing room. I know Cool Guy just did a video talking about Nightshade the other day and how its range is just uncompetitive. I think that's going to bring this up, or this change is going to bring that weapon up, but it's also going to bring all other pulse rifles up into the fray. But yeah, aggressive pulse rifles, they have increased the ADS fall off scalar to 1.8. I actually, let's see, does it have what it was before? Yeah, here we go. It was 1.7 beforehand. So this was basically the zoom, so to speak. This was the zoom. So they're bringing it back up to 1.8. And then of course they just give us some charts to look at here. I mean, we'll look at what the new ranges are going to be for SMGs. 14 to 23.5 meters is going to be their new kind of range area. So again, if you have those God rolls, immortals, stuff like that, those are still going to be important. That hasn't really changed. With this, of course, auto rifles, the base damage here is changing. Okay, now it has slightly less range, right? That's the change when they went from 1.7 to 1.6. So they've got less range now. Overall, I think this is okay. I do notice that auto rifles are performing outside of their intended ranges, right? Like I'm getting melted by Rufus's Fury, I'm getting melted by obviously Omit's, I'm getting melted by some weapons, and I'm like, man, like that is just really, really odd. Like I feel like I'm not quite at the range that an auto rifle should be killing me at. Like, yes, I would say obviously, somebody who is very, very proficient in auto rifles and who uses them constantly could probably do that. But like when I'm running into one of those every single game, it's probably like, hey, I don't think that every single one of these people are as good as this performance is. But some other notable changes in here, of course, aggressive frame pulse rifles, they're getting a range bump here, so that's fantastic. And then everything else I think is staying the same. Yeah, everything else looks like it just stayed the same. So, but moving on here, we got fusion rifles. Okay, so some combinations of perks and damage boosts can allow fusion rifles to operate well outside their intended ranges. This is a huge fact, right? It doesn't mean they're cheap or that they're broken, right? They just got a little too much range. Plus, in general, fusions feel like they can reach out just a bit too much. So we've reduced the minimum damage fall off from 50% to now 45%. This means that their damage fall off will occur more quickly once it starts and will decrease at a lower value than it does currently in live. Oh my gosh, I cannot read. I'm sorry. Which should help reduce the instances of feeling like you are mapped well outside of expected range. Yes, there are some fusion rifles that can absolutely smack you from from ranges that aren't appropriate, right? So they've reduced that damage, which I think, again, I think that's fine, right? They didn't change charge times. They didn't change accuracy or anything like that. Like, I think fusion rifles are fine where they are outside of the range. And this change to range is hopefully going to rein them in just a little bit. And again, it's just those ones that smack you. Okay, those adaptives, those high impact frames. I really don't see, your rapid fire frames changing all that much. You're not using rapid fire frames from miles away. So yeah. Okay, here we go. Sniper rifles. Oh, I love snipers, right? The changes to sniper rifles are twofold. First, we wanted to address the issue that snipers, even with moderate investment in airborne effectiveness, still don't feel usable in the air. This is major because this feels true. I mean, even on Warlock with Icarus, or not Icarus dash, Heat Rise is active and building fully into airborne effectiveness, they feel incredibly inaccurate. So they've increased their base airborne effectiveness or accuracy by 20%, which now has them starting at the same accuracy that they had with an Icarus mod pre-AE. Further investment in AE will still provide increased accuracy and aim assistance. On the other hand, though, snipers have been bordering on becoming oppressive in high-level gameplay. And part of that is that they deal such high damage that even landing a body shot can push a player into critical health. This felt wrong, as the intent of the sniper is to be a high-risk, high-reward weapon. And this is very, very true. You know, I see a lot of people complaining about snipers and how they're low skill, blah, blah, blah. But no, they are, you got one shot. If you don't land it, you're dead, right? And having them be so rewarding for missing a headshot doesn't feel like it fits the amount of upside they can provide in the hands of skilled players. As a result, we have decreased the amount of body shot damage that snipers can do as a starting point, and will evaluate how this change plays out in the wild moving forward. Note, this change also affects their body shot damage in PvE, but in Season 23, they'll be buffing sniper rifle damage by a flat 15%. So there we go. We got a Season 23 sneak peek, right? Snipers getting 15% more damage in PvE. This is big. This is really big. And this is something I don't know. I had never really considered this as a Destiny 2 player. Like, yes, it is frustrating to get bodied by a sniper, but typically if you're getting bodied by a sniper, like, you are more often than not in a position where you can get to cover, right? So I never really viewed this as an issue, but I think Bungie is kind of on a good point here, right? Like players should not be rewarded for missing, right? For missing a headshot, right? And landing a body, you know? But with these changes, aggressives, they're still going to be able to 2-hit body. Same thing with adaptives. Like, you're still going to get 2 hits to the body. I think what this is mainly for is, like they said up there in those 3v3 modes, right? Things like trials, you know, you get a body shot off on somebody, your team can rush in for an immediate cleanup very quickly. This is going to reduce that, right? Because if you're running max resilience in trials, this is still going to leave you with like 65 HP, which is, I don't even think that's red health anymore. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's pretty good. Also, we are getting increases to our critical hits on all snipers here, which I think is pretty darn nice. I think this is their current like fix for the PvE situation. Because in PvE, you know, reducing the body damage, that's gonna, like, I don't think you're gonna feel it all that much, but you're definitely gonna feel it at some point. So increasing the precision damage is definitely a good thing that they did here. All right, here we go. Shotguns. This is going to be a good one. Okay, like snipers, we wanted to make shotguns with minimal AE investment feel more usable. So we have matched their base in-air accuracy with the pre-AE Icarus mod, blah, 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 kind of the similar stuff. Where we get into the juicy stuff, right? In general, they have decreased airborne accuracy penalty for slug shotguns, precision slug shotguns, by 20%. That is a big deal, because now you're going to be getting mapped by chaperones falling from the sky, right? Don't quote me on that. But they also decreased the airborne pellet spread penalty for pellet shotguns by 20%. This is good. I mean, I've never seen an issue with shotguns in terms of airborne effectiveness. I don't use shotguns, but anytime somebody is flying through the air at me with a shotgun, like, I typically feel like they take more than one shot to kill, right? So this is going to just, I guess, help, you know, those players that want to be airborne with a shotgun, which really, I think shotguns, I mean, I don't really think they needed much help in the air, but I don't know. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to pull it up. Oh well. We're gonna go over perks now. They've changed 2 perks. Perfect floats. Of course, perfect float is the one where you get some improvements to your stats just by doing some things. I want to say airborne things. They've increased the base duration of perfect floats from 6 seconds to 10 seconds, and they've increased the extended duration from 7 to 12 seconds. Also, Kickstart. Kickstart is getting a big change here. Kickstart is one of the most popular damage perks on a fusion rifle. Yes, it is. They have reduced the bonus damage from 20% to 15. And this, I think, is going to require some testing here. I'm not exactly sure how that is going to affect, you know, the amount of shots and the range, stuff like that. But that's kind of a big deal. I would imagine on most fusion rifles, it's going to take 1 extra bolt to hit and get the kill, right? Really, I'll be honest, I don't think you're going to see a big change because of with Kickstart. Like, Kickstart, if you're using it appropriately, you're not going to feel a difference, right? You're still going to be landing all your pellets. Like Kickstart, I feel like, is one that just gives you a little tiny bit more, like, wiggle room, and it's still going to do that, just not as effectively. I think this is mainly for the range changes that are coming to fusion rifles. Finally, in Checkmate, we have some other changes here. They've increased the score to win from 100 to 125, which I think is pretty good. I mean, the games did feel very short prior to this change, they still feel very short. And they're decreasing the frequency of heavy ammo from 90 seconds to now 180 seconds, right? So heavy's only going to come once every 3 minutes, right? So heavy's going to be much more of a important deal. I imagine you're probably only going to get 1, maybe 2 heavy boxes a game. You're going to get 1, kind of in the mid game. And if you get another one, it's going to come at the very, very end of the game. Maybe when things, can twist the game a little bit, right? And that's my biggest concern here with changing the heavy, right? Is because if you get to a situation where, the score is at 120 to 120 and then heavy spawns, right? That's going to basically give somebody a much higher chance at winning the game when you've been at odds for the whole match. So yeah, but that's it really for your Crucible changes that are upcoming. I think that there's a lot of really good things in here. Again, some of the biggest things, Antaeus wards and young Ahamkara's spine. These are great changes. I think that they did need to happen somehow. And yeah, I think that those are good changes. Also, some of the weapon changes in here, increasing some of the pulse rifles ranges. Sorry, I can't think. And then same thing with the sniper rifle change. Like, I think that's pretty awesome. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the changes that have happened here. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Tell me all your thoughts in the comments below. Of course, if you enjoyed today's content, drop a like. It helps the channel a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content. And do me a favor, watch the videos you see on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you will like them. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.